This IUCN, International Union for Conservation of Nature and Natural Resources, is an important international non-government organization working in the areas of natural conservation and protection of threatened species, and coordinating internationally among the developed and developing countries for formulating the conservation strategies. Okay, and this IUCN prepares a list called red data list, and this red data list consists of species which are in danger of extinction and species which are threatened from human beings, human interferences. So this red list categorizes the species into 9 important categories based on the level of threat they are facing in the environment. Okay, it was founded in 1960, and it is the world's most comprehensive inventory of global conservation status of biological species. So this provides the conservation status of a particular species in their natural habitat. It is compiled by the IUCN, and the goals of the red data list is to provide scientifically based information on the status of species and subspecies at the global level, for helping in the areas of conservation of these species, and to draw attention to the magnitude, okay, the level and importance of threatened biodiversity. And it also helps to influence national and international policy formulators and policy makers, and helps in important decision making in the areas of conservation of these species, and to provide information to guide actions to conserve the biological diversity. These are the important goals of the IUCN Red List. And along with IUCN, other important international organizations are involved in preparation of this Red List. These include BirdLife International, Institute of Zoology, the Research Division of Zoological Society of London, and World Conservation Monitoring Center, specialist group within the IUCN Species Survival Commission. So these organizations are involved in preparation of IUCN Red List. And the color codes are given in the IUCN Red List. This includes the pink pages refers to the species which are critically endangered, and the green pages include the species which were formerly endangered, but they recovered to a point where they are no longer threatened. So these are referred by green pages. Here, the irony is that the pink pages are increasing day by day and green pages are reducing. This is the stark reality. And the species are categorized into 9 broad categories, okay, based on the level of danger they are facing from the human beings in the nature. Okay, and these categories are made through various criteria. For example, these criteria include rate of decline of the population, the population size in the natural environment, area of geographical distribution of the species, and degree of population distribution fragmentation. These are the criteria based on which 9 categories are made in the red data list, and species are filled into these categories. Okay, and let's look at the important categories which are made in the red data list. First is extinct, second extinct in the wild, next critically endangered, endangered and vulnerable. These are considered as threatened categories. Next is near threatened, least concern, data deficient and not evaluated. First, let's look at the extinct. This extinct category includes the species which are extinct, which are no longer found on the globe, on the earth. So these are disappeared long back. So this is considered only after exhaustive survey in the known or expected habitat of the species at appropriate times, including during the daytime as well as nighttime, during different season, during annual cycles. So even after such exhaustive survey, if it is found that there is no species are present in their natural habitat, then that species is considered as extinct. Okay, and next category is extinct in the wild. Here the species are extinct in their natural habitat in the forest or wherever they were present earlier, but some of the species are grown, some of the species are raised as in captivity, like in zoo gardens or captive breeding programs. So these are considered as extinct in the wild. The present government and human beings do not have any influence in this category because it is beyond our control, but we can prevent other species to slip into this category, okay, like threatened species. So if we undertake various conservation measures for these threatened species like critically endangered, and vulnerable, we can prevent these species slipping into the category of extinct and extinct in the wild. So this critically endangered species is important here. Here the species are categorized into critically endangered based on certain criteria. That criteria includes if there is a reduction in population of that species is more than 90% in the last 10 years, okay, and the population size is only 50 mature individuals at present, and the probability that it will extinct in the wild in the next 10 years is 50%. So if there is a 50% probability that it will extinct in the wild for the next 10 years, then it is considered as critically endangered. Next, endangered category is categorized based on certain criteria. This include for the last 10 years there was reduction in population at the rate of 70%, okay, and at present there are less than 250 individuals are present, and for the next 20 years if there is probability of extinct in the wild is 20%, then that is considered as endangered. And next is vulnerable. Here this vulnerable category is based on classified based on certain criteria. This include if there is a reduction, if there was a reduction in population of the species for the last 10 years is 50% reduction in population size, then that is considered as vulnerable. And other criteria is that if there are less than 10,000 species are present, and for the next 100 years if there is a probability of 10% if it is going to be extincted, this is considered as vulnerable, okay. And next is near threatened. So these species which do not meet the criteria which are mentioned here are considered as near threatened, but without any interference in conservation efforts, it may slip into the further into vulnerable or endangered categories in future. Next is least concern. So here the population is abundant and there is no concern for the conservation status of these organisms. And next level is data deficient. Here the sufficient data is not available in this category of organisms, so that we can classify based on the level of threatedness they're facing. So here data is not available for the scientists to categorize that species into these following categories. And another category is not evaluated. So there are infinite number of species which are not evaluated by the scientists for their conservation status. These are included here. So these are the 9 categories. Most important is threatened category, that is critically endangered, endangered, and vulnerable. So for the convenience of reading, I have tabulated the criteria for considering critically endangered, endangered, or vulnerable species. So in the criteria include the population reduction in the last 10 years. If the population reduction was 90% of the total population, then it is grouped into critically endangered. If there was 70% reduction in the total population in the last 10 years, it is considered under endangered. If there is 50% reduction in the population in the last 10 years, it is considered as vulnerable species. And on the basis of population size, if there is less than 50 reproductive individuals present in the habitat, then that is considered as critically endangered. If there is less than 250, then that is considered as endangered. If that is less than 10,000, that is vulnerable, okay. Here the probability of extinct in the wild for the next 10 years is 50%. That means 50 out of 100 individual, for 50 out of 100 chances there is a probability of extinction in the wild for the next 10 years, okay, for the critically endangered. For endangered, 20 out of 100 chances are there in the next 20 years for the extinction of these species included in the endangered category. Here the 10 out of 100 chances are there for the vulnerable categories for the chances of becoming extinct in the next 100 years. So this is the probability of extinction in the wild criteria. And next is risk of extinction in the wild includes extremely high for critically endangered, very high in the endangered, and high in the vulnerable. So this is the criteria for dividing the species based on the threatedness they are facing. And thanks for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel.